The clock struck midnight as Nathan Carter stood at the kitchen sink, rinsing the last of the dinner dishes. Outside, the wind howled through the skeletal trees, brushing against the windows like ghostly fingertips. It had been a long day at the construction site, and all Nathan wanted now was a few quiet hours before sleep claimed him. Life as a single dad wasn't easy. Every day was a careful balancing act between fatherhood and survival. But Liam, his 5-year-old son, was worth every drop of sweat. The boy was already fast asleep upstairs, tucked in with his favorite dinosaur blanket, blissfully unaware of the cold world beyond their warm little farmhouse. Just as Nathan reached for a towel, a sharp knock shattered the stillness. He froze. It wasn't a polite, neighborly tap. It was urgent. Frantic, a chill crept up his spine as he turned off the faucet and approached the front door. They lived on the outskirts of town, miles from the nearest gas station. No one just dropped by, especially not at this hour. His heart pounded in his chest as he flicked on the porch light and cautiously opened the door. There, standing in the pouring rain, was a woman. She looked no older than 30, her long hair plastered to her face, her clothes soaked and clinging to her thin frame. Her eyes, wild, bruised, and filled with fear, locked onto his. For a brief moment, neither spoke. Then she stumbled forward, collapsing into his arms, her voice barely a whisper. "Help me." Nathan caught her instinctively, his arms wrapping around her trembling body. She felt so fragile, so weightless, as though the rain might wash her away. His instincts screamed to be careful, but something deeper, the same part of him that cradled Lam during his nightmares, knew this woman wasn't a threat. She was running from one. He shut the door behind her and carried her inside, laying her gently on the old couch. The fire still glowed faintly in the hearth, casting a soft amber light across the room. Liam, stirred by the noise, peeked from behind the staircase, his eyes wide with confusion. "It's okay, buddy," Nathan whispered. "Go back to sleep." The woman didn't say another word. Her lips were pale, her body soaked and shivering, and faint bruises dotted her skin. Nathan wrapped her in a thick blanket and placed a pillow under her head. He knelt beside her, brushing damp hair from her face. He didn't know her name or why she had come to his door. But one thing was certain: she had chosen him. Of all the homes she could have run to, she had picked his. Maybe it was fate, maybe desperation. Either way, Nathan knew in his gut that everything was about to change. And it all began with a knock in the dead of night. Morning sunlight streamed through the living room curtains, casting golden rays across the woman still sleeping on Nathan's couch. Nathan sat nearby, sipping a lukewarm cup of coffee, his thoughts tangled with questions. She hadn't stirred much during the night, her body so exhausted it seemed to have shut down completely. Nathan had barely slept himself, listening for any noise, any sign that someone might have followed her. The house was quiet now. Aside from the soft ticking of the clock and the occasional creak of the old floorboards. Liam had left for kindergarten with the neighbor, clueless about the stranger in their home. Nathan was grateful for that. As if sensing his gaze, the woman began to stir. She blinked against the morning light and tried to sit up, wincing from some unseen pain. Nathan approached slowly, holding out a warm mug of tea. "Easy," he said gently. "You're safe. Take your time." She looked at him with wide, haunted eyes, and then her lips trembled as she whispered, "Thank you." He nodded but didn't press. It was only after a long silence, when she realized he wasn't demanding answers, that she began to speak. "My name is Emily," she said, her voice raw and brittle. "I didn't mean to drag you into this." "You didn't," Nathan replied. "But I think you need help. Real help." Tears welled in her eyes, and she nodded slowly. "I've been running for weeks, hiding in shelters, cars, motels, anywhere he wouldn't think to look. My husband," she said bitterly, "soon to be ex, I hope. His name is Victor Langston. He's dangerous, controlling. He's not just some abusive man. He's connected. Money, lawyers, private security. Every time I tried to leave, he found me. The last time, I thought he was going to kill me." Nathan's jaw tightened. He looked at her battered arms, the fresh bruises along her wrist, and felt a surge of protective anger rise in his chest. "So you ran. Smart." "I thought I could disappear," she said, her voice shaking. Then last night, I saw one of his men at the bus station. I panicked. I remembered this place. Years ago, you helped me fix a flat tire on the highway. I never forgot your name. I didn't know where else to go. I didn't even know if you'd still live here." Nathan sat back, stunned by the revelation. He vaguely remembered her now. A kind smile, gentle laugh, and a thank you that lingered. That brief interaction had meant little to him at the time, but for her it had clearly meant something more. "You made the right call," he said softly. "You're not alone anymore." Emily's eyes met his, and for the first time a sliver of hope flickered there. She was still scared, still broken, but in this house, with this man and his quiet strength, she finally felt the possibility of safety. And maybe, just maybe, a future worth fighting for. The days that followed offered a fragile illusion of peace. Emily started to blend into the rhythm of the household. She helped Liam with his coloring books, folded laundry alongside Nathan, and even baked banana bread one afternoon, her laughter faint but real. Her bruises faded slowly, but the trauma behind her eyes remained. Nathan watched her carefully. He noticed how she flinched at loud noises, or checked the windows when a car passed too slowly. He didn't ask for more than she offered. He just made sure the doors were locked, the security lights functional, and that Liam was always within arm's reach. One evening, as Nathan drove Liam home from school, a black SUV appeared in his rearview mirror. It wasn't uncommon in town, but something about the way it followed every turn made Nathan's skin crawl. When he accelerated, so did the SUV. Only when they reached their driveway, and he pulled in sharply, did the vehicle speed off down the road. Nathan stood at the end of his porch for several minutes afterward, scanning the horizon, a knot growing in his gut. Inside, Emily sensed the shift. She knew that look in Nathan's eyes when he came through the door. Tense, wary, ready to fight. "They're getting closer, aren't they?" she asked quietly. He didn't lie. "I think they've found you." Emily's hands trembled as she reached for the arm of the couch to steady herself. "I should leave. I've brought danger to your doorstep. What if they hurt Liam? What if they—" "No," Nathan said firmly, cutting her off. "This house, this family, is not running. You came to me for help, and I'm not backing down now. We'll handle this together." That night, Nathan called Mark, an old army buddy turned private investigator. Mark was the kind of man who could find the truth in the dark and shine a light on it. After Nathan explained the situation, Mark promised to dig into Victor Langston's movements and send a few eyes to watch the property. Just before midnight, the power suddenly went out. Emily, who had been resting on the couch, bolted upright in panic. Liam stirred in his bed, murmuring in his sleep. Nathan reached instinctively for the flashlight he kept in the drawer and crept to the front window. Shadows shifted across the lawn. Too many to be tricks of the moonlight. Then came the sound of footsteps, faint but deliberate. Nathan stood at the door, baseball bat in hand, heart pounding. Emily huddled in the corner with Liam, clutching him close, whispering soothing words though her own voice trembled. Then, as the tension reached a fever pitch, a firm knock echoed through the silence. "Nate," came a calm, familiar voice. "It's me, Mark. We've got eyes on your house, and we're not alone." Emily broke down in tears, overwhelmed. The shadows had arrived, but so had the first flicker of hope. Nathan opened the door not with fear, but with resolve. The fight wasn't over. But now, they had backup. Mark's arrival changed everything. With his network of ex-military contacts and private security allies, Nathan's home was quickly transformed into a quiet fortress. Motion sensors were installed, cameras mounted on trees, and an unmarked patrol car circled the block every few hours. But more importantly, Emily no longer felt alone in her fight. For the first time in years, someone besides herself stood up to protect her. Not out of duty, but out of care. And in Nathan's eyes, she saw a fire that reassured her heart. He wasn't going to let anyone hurt her or Liam. Over the following week, Mark's team gathered surveillance footage, intercepted phone calls, and tracked the black SUV. They soon discovered that Victor Langston had indeed hired men to hunt her down. But now, with the right evidence in hand and Mark's legal contacts, Emily had a real chance to bring him to justice. All she had to do was be brave enough to speak. The courtroom was cold and intimidating. Emily sat with trembling hands, eyes flickering nervously toward the defense table, where Victor sat smugly in a tailored suit. But as the judge entered and the hearing began, she reached for Nathan's hand. He gave her a steady look that said, "You've got this." Liam, sitting beside them, smiled and whispered, "You're strong, Miss Emily." When it was her turn to speak, Emily stood, heart racing, and walked to the witness stand. For a moment, she faltered under Victor's icy glare. But then she remembered the bruises on her arms, the nights she'd cried silently in motel bathrooms, the moment she collapsed in Nathan's doorway. And she remembered how it felt when someone finally chose to stand beside her. With a deep breath, she began. Her testimony was raw and detailed, about the physical abuse, the threats, the fear, and the manipulation. She told the court how Victor had used his influence to silence her for years. But not anymore. Her voice, once a faint whisper in the rain, had become firm, clear, and unwavering. The evidence Mark provided sealed the case. Wire transfers, security footage, testimonies from former staff. Everything exposed the monster behind the mask. The courtroom was silent when the verdict was read guilty on multiple counts. Victor Langston was sentenced to prison, his empire crumbling as swiftly as his arrogance. Outside the courthouse, Emily broke into tears. Not of fear this time, but of release. Nathan held her close while Liam wrapped his arms around her waist. "You did it," Nathan whispered. "No," she replied softly. "We did." Weeks later, life began to feel normal again. Emily officially moved into the farmhouse, and with each passing day, the fear in her eyes gave way to joy. She and Nathan cooked dinner together, laughed around the table with Liam, and watched sunsets from the porch, no longer afraid of the dark. She had once whispered, "Help me," in desperation. Now, in the arms of the man who answered, she found strength, and for the first time in her life, freedom.